school issues.
So, based on some of the information some of you folks have seen in the paper over the last few days, as well as having a non-meeting with our attorney and learning some different things, I would like to make a motion to reconsider the tuition agreement with Pinkerton for the year 14-15. If I get a second, I will talk about my motion.
Can I have a motion again, please?
Yes.
The motion is to reconsider.
Reconsider the tuition agreement for Pinkerton for the year 14-15. We're actively working on.
You mean reconsider the 15-16 motion?
I can say that, yeah, that was the last thing we voted on, sure.
Do you want a second?
So basically, obviously, like Jim just alluded to, we had a large turnout last night for folks that were concerned about where the kids were going next year, just in general. And I had stated that at that meeting. It's always interesting to me how we get very minimal public participation, and then from different factions based on what they want to see from the board. But for me, last night was the largest amount of folks we've seen and the best flavor for what the public wants here in Hooksett. We had folks, again, talking about the different satellite schools as well as Manchester, which are all options in the plan that we had talked about. And a lot of folks obviously came out that were concerned about Pinkerton being off the table. So anyway, so that's where I said I want to try to do everything I can to exhaust all the options that we have to work with these other towns, because that's doing our due diligence. Again, we had folks that were interested in all these schools, and we had a very vocal majority last night that were very concerned about Pinkerton. So I want to work with our attorney and do whatever we can to try to come to a reasonable outcome. The other aspect I can say in very general terms was that we had two concerns about the last tuition agreement that was presented to us from Pinkerton. They have addressed one of those, and there's one remaining, and I want to continue to work on that.
I'd just like to say, buckle your seats, Hooksett, because we're going to take you for another ride into indecision. It was over last week, but now it's not going to be over, and those decisions that we made last week, we're going to reconsider all of those again, and the deadline for that is we don't know when. So if you think that you heard the decision, you haven't, maybe. And the large number of people that were there last night for Pinkerton was certainly understandable, because Pinkerton people were disappointed. And maybe the lack of other constituencies was because maybe they weren't disappointed. But here we are, we're going to have a public forum, and then the next day we're going to reverse what we did. Should have had the public forum a couple months ago. Should have been doing all this stuff a couple months ago. And now we're going to try to squeeze it out yet again. So hang on, and we'll see what happens.
Mr. Dundo and then Mr. Lewis first.
David, what we're doing is listening to all the, not all the contingencies, but all the groups. So again, the process we talked about last night with our anchor school and satellite schools addresses all the folks that are in all the different camps, folks that love Manchester and continue or wish to stay there, folks that want to go to Pembroke, folks that want to go to Bow, folks that want to go to Londonderry. So I'm not focusing on any one group. I'm trying to do the most I can for all the folks in town that have concerns about all those different schools.
If this board wanted to do the most it could for the Hooksett public, they should have listened clearly last night to what some of those folks in the public said, is they wanted this board to listen to the public more often. This board's majority has canceled time and time again public input sessions, public forums, public reviews, and we're going to do it again, folks. So hang on, as Mr. Pearl says, buckle your seatbelts, because the 8th grade parents who at least were starting to feel some security are gonna go on a ride again. And I'm gonna be against it. We voted, and I'm trying to go along with this board, so I'm gonna try to support the actions of the board, and right away, they wanna change their own actions. It's not surprising to me anymore. Thank you.
Michelle?
In light of things that have transpired, especially with one of the issues is now off the table, I definitely think that it is our due diligence to continue this process and hopefully to do it as quickly as possible to give the 8th grade class some solace and to begin their placement process. That's definitely my goal. I am going to support this. I don't want to see people become extremely hopeful, but that we are going to work as diligently as we can to get this to a resolution for this 8th grade class and for the upcoming classes behind that. Thanks.
Yes, Mr. Wisconsin?
So we continue to talk about these two issues. In our public budget session, Dr. Littlefield expressed to the board that, I remember the exact word, but one of it was something like a showstopper. And he expressed to the board it was something we had talked in the non-public meeting before with the lawyer. We all understand what he was talking about. And there was a second item that Dr. Littlefield discussed, which was about the MOUs. And it was the language in the MOUs, and the lawyers allowed us to talk about that. So this is the second one that, the second showstopper, if you will. And it was the language in the MOUs that was restrictive about how the, schools like Londonderry or Bow could restrict admittance based upon certain criteria of the incoming students. And Pinkerton had objected to that. Pinkerton has withdrawn that objection. So that's a positive for Pinkerton. I can tell you this, that this board fully supports a relationship with Pinkerton, a long-term relationship with Pinkerton. I believe, I can't say fully supports, that's all I'm going to say about that. With the other districts, I believe we've shown over time that Hooksett has created good relationships with these other school districts. I, as a single board member, want to continue those good relationships as well as a relationship with Pinkerton. That's based upon building trust with people. I want to build trust, and the way to build trust with people is work out contracts or negotiated agreements that you take your time on and you make sure you cross your T's or dot your I's. Because we all know what happens when we rush through an agreement, the public isn't there for the details, and we spring it on them at the last minute. What happens is, a few weeks later, when the public finally gets to look at that contract, they start giving us their input. And we found out we ignored the public again. I won't let that happen again on my vote. If the majority of this board wants to do it, so be it.
Yes, Mr. Frank?
I think from public comment, you could understand that the Pinkerton contract has restrictions in it. Otherwise, I'd be supporting it. So you as parents might be asking, what are the criteria for me to be opted out of the Pinkerton contract? And I can tell you right now, we have none. So we're now chasing down a restrictive contract when we have not agreed under what circumstances people would even opt out of that. We haven't even created them for the opt-in to the MOUs. And we're asking you or telling you to accept something that you will have no idea how it personally affects you because we have not agreed upon any criteria at this point. And to me, that's unacceptable. I said, and I thought this board agreed before, that before we would vote on something, we would create that criteria so that everybody knew how we would execute it. And we have none.
David, I have no problem with talking about the criteria tonight. I tried to get it in last meeting, and we ended up adjourning because things got ugly at the end. So I'm all for, we can talk about the concept of how we're going to do it in the process, in the placement process. We can do that tonight.
And this is about continuing the negotiations. This isn't about a decision that's been made or we're already accepting a contract. This is reconsidering it for the 15-16 school year and to continue with the 14-15 school year. So there is no contractual obligation at this point, and I think that we should start discussing the placement process.
Mr. Wisconsin,
Yeah, once again, this board says we want to follow rules and policy, and here's
Mr.
Mr.
Wisconsin, if you'd like to
Excuse
follow,
me.
no, actually, I have the floor, a point of order.
No, you
It-
gave
a
me
point
the
of-
floor,
a point
you
of-
recognized me, and I'm starting to
a
talk,
point of
and now
order
you're
is
interrupting
You don't
me.
get a third time.
Well,
You've spoken
you
twice. If
recognize
I've
me.
been to the, I.
You recognize me,
I'm
and
allowed
I'm starting to talk, and now you're being rude.
Okay. I just want you to know, there are some times that rules need to be bent a little, and I'm trying to give you the opportunity to address your issues, but
Okay, I'll
don't throw
tell
the
you what.
rules in my face.
I'll tell you what, I'll give you a point of order then. If you feel more comfortable, here's your point of order. Mr. Dembo's concern tonight is not on the agenda.
Yes, it's covered under updates to the community on high school issues, It falls under that.
Oh, it does.
Yep, we're addressing.
That's a pretty general topic.
No, I think there's a confusion. He's talking about creating the criteria for opt-out. That Mr. Dembo said he'd be glad to talk about. Mr.
The
Liscard
community has
pointed
asked
out.
us for a process, that's an update, we're responding to what they've asked us for.
David, no, all those, David, I thought that you were talking about, what that's what you alluded to, is that what you alluded to?
Yeah, no, here's my point, though. Just making a technical point. You wanted to talk about the criteria for opt-out. I do too. My point is, it's not on our agenda.
Well, no, what I said was, I thought you referenced it when you just spoke, that's the only reason why I referenced it. You know, there's no reason to get worked up and start yelling at people, we're good here, you know what I mean?
Hey, Phil, first of all, I want to get recognized. Okay, I don't start talking until I get recognized. Now that I am recognized, Phil, I am getting worked up. You want to know why? Because I represent all of the Hooksett constituents, not just of one group. I try to represent all. That's folks that are interested in Pinkerton, because I support Pinkerton, Manchester, because I support Manchester, Londonderry, because I support Londonderry, Bow, and Pembroke, okay? I also support a board that obeys its own rules, because if you decide, well, tonight we're going to do this a certain way and another way, we start looking like the SAU meeting, where they have no real rules. And what happens? It ends up in chaos. So, Phil, the point here is, why do you put things on agenda? Here's the reason why on a board. So the public is properly noticed. Then if it interests them, they can come and watch the process. If you don't notice it, they say, well, they're not gonna work on that tonight, so I'm not gonna attend the meeting. That's why, and that's the only reason why it's important. It's not, I wanna get that done too, but we have to keep the public along. We can't keep ignoring the public on these issues. Thank you.
With there being no further discussion, I will call the motion to reconsider. Could you restate the motion? I'm sorry. I just prefer it to be what's actually stated than my paraphrasing.
Is a motion to reconsider the tuition agreement with Pinkerton for 2015-2016.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I have a question first before I vote. We're going to reconsider it. I'm not really sure what, this is not a vote of reconsideration, isn't it?
Yes, it is a vote of reconsideration.
Well, we pointed out last time, we don't really need to have a vote of reconsideration from one meeting to the other. So I don't find it very clear.
So I'll tell you what the essence of what I was trying to do. And again, I'm not Mr. Roberts' rules. I just want to open back up the fact that we could possibly get a tuition agreement with Pinkerton for 14-15. Last meeting, we voted to continue for 15-16. So whatever the semantics are, that's what I'm trying to do.
Phil, they're not semantics. This is a motion that may determine the future of Hooksett. I'm just asking you to get the language correct. That's all I'm asking before I vote.
So I would like to reconsider working on the tuition agreement for the 15-16. That's what I wanted to do. Reconsider continuing.
We're reconsidering the vote. I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying. You would like a motion to reconsider the vote that we, instead of a tuition agreement with Pinkerton for 2015, 2016, you would like that to be for 2014, 2015.
Correct.
All those in favor?
So you restate, because the motion hasn't changed, I haven't changed the motion, someone changed the motion, amended the motion. Is that right? I just want to make sure, because don't ask me to read it later. So the motion is to reconsider the tuition agreement for 2015-16. Is there an amendment for that?
Sounds good. We're going to ask Dr. Littlefield, reconsider.
I'm not going to reconsider
No, he's
anything.
going to help us procedurally.
The motion is for reconsideration. If the motion should pass, then you need a subsequent motion to take some action other than the action you took at last week's meeting. So the motion for reconsideration doesn't change anything, but puts the discussion back on the table.
I disagree with one fact, Dr. Littlefield, because he's not saying reconsider the 15-16. He's saying reconsider 14-15, which we didn't take a vote on 14-15. That's where I think the confusion in that motion is.
I think Leanne needs to reread it again. I thought I heard 15-16. I might have heard 14-15.
So the motion is to reconsider the tuition agreement with Pinkerton for 15-16.
Motion. Go. Does everyone understand we're taking a motion to reconsider 2015, 2016?
We have a roll call, please.
Absolutely. And then whenever you're ready.
Charlotte Axton,
Aye.
Phil Dunbar,
Yes.
John Scars,
No.
David Pearl,
No.
Tricia Corpus.
Yes. Motion to reconsider passes 3-2.
So I'd like to make a motion that we recommence negotiations with Pinkerton for the 14-15 school year.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Yes, Mr. Lee.
I can't support this. The data hasn't changed. There's been one small change. The major change is nothing's changed there. The public needs something to make themselves feel more comfortable with where their children are going. We have options that we can arrange, and we need to get that moving. But now we're going to delay the public one more time through the holidays. I won't support it.
Yes, Mr. Brown.
I won't support this motion either. I don't think that there's been a significant change. I think that what change has come at the very last moment. And I think that members of this board are just holding on to any possibility to have this happen, and it's going to just inconvenience parents further by dragging this out to a point where we shouldn't even be at yet. So I won't support the motion.
If there being no further discussion, I'll call this question to a vote. All those in...
May we have a roll call, please?
Absolutely. Whenever you're ready.
David Pearl,
No.
John Scars,
No.
Charlotte Axton,
Yes.
Phil Dunbar,
Yes.
Tricia Corpus.